Tatum and Haliburton are way too young for this to be occurring.
Athletes are more explosive. Training is more effective. Shoes are more supportive. Athletes train, play in supportive shoes from the start. Theory, today's athletes are popping Achilles because lower leg muscles and tendons are over and underdeveloped, respectively, due to shoe technology.
In the words of Dwight Schrute, the worst thing you could do for your immune system is to coddle it. It's the same philosophy for your athleticism and your feet.
Right now, it's kind of the same thing that you're hearing people talk about with AI. You're seeing people who now are essentially outsourcing their thinking to AI. So they're like heavily relying on AI instead of actually thinking.
Did you see that study?
Yeah, that's crazy.
MIT brain just completed the first brain scan study of ChatGPT users, and the results are terrifying. Turns out AI is not making us more productive. It's making us cognitively bankrupt. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, sort of the same type of thing. You will never see a player play with a calf strain ever again. NBA Finals, Game 7, Oklahoma City Thunder defeating the Indiana Pacers at home. I think kind of like a lot of people expected this, but the biggest story, of course, is Tyrese Haliburton presumably tearing his Achilles 7 minutes into the game. Absolutely devastated. It almost feels like we were all, as fans, not to make this about us, but we as fans kind of robbed of what could have been an absolutely generational game because Tyrese started off so well. I think he was like 3 for 4 from 3 points. And he was starting off very, very intensely. But the big story is this is the 8th Achilles tear in the NBA so far this year, or this year. The previous max was 5. So there's a huge bump up in Achilles tears. And this obviously is like the most devastating injury that an athlete can have. And we're getting a lot of different takes and thoughts about the conversation on this. Scott, give me your initial thoughts here.
This sucks. It's crazy to see 3 go down, especially 3 high caliber dudes. I mean, it's obviously terrible whenever any athlete tears this tendon.
Yeah.
I mean, we're even seeing it in the NFL happening more and more frequently. There are other reasons for that, probably just due to surface and everything like that. But it seems like a lot of high profile athletes are popping them. And yeah, some may be on the higher range of age. You got the Aaron Rodgers, the Kirk Cousins, all that kind of stuff. Dame
right there, yeah.
Dude, Tatum and Haliburton are way too young for this to be occurring. My theory is it has to do with shoe tech and kids learning to train in specific type of shoes that like probably coddle their feet and their lower extremities too much.
That is interesting. I actually have your tweet right here that you put up. And I hearted, which I really, really like. So for those just listening.
You and all 3 other people.
We got 3 or 4 likes. Pretty damn
Wait,
good.
let me heart it.
Give it a heart.
Mike.
Make it 5. For those just listening, Scott said he takes the Tatum thing. And Mike, you're not going to want to watch this because I'm going to scroll down here for those you can see.
Okay.
Don't look, Mike.
Trigger warning.
Oh, gosh. I mean, that's just brutal. But Scott, here you say athletes are more explosive. Training is more effective. Shoes are more supportive. Athletes train, play in supportive shoes from the start. Theory, today's athletes are popping Achilles because lower leg muscles and tendons are over and underdeveloped, respectively, due to shoe technology. Okay, Scott, elaborate on this right here. I think there's something there.
Yeah, all I'm thinking about here is like obviously the training has gone through the roof. I think athletes, while we've had this back and forth as to whether or not athletes are better today than they were yesterday, I think the only difference between, call it athleticism, is the training regimens. They've just become more precise, more effective so that people can increase, say, their explosivity and everything, their athleticism through those training programs. But while they're doing all of that, they're training in these higher tech version of shoes, which, adds cushioning, adds support, adds all these things that otherwise aren't naturally available to your feet when you're doing these athletic feats, right? So as you're training from a young age, your muscles and tendons are getting accustomed to that support. And over time, when that explosivity, I think there's an escape velocity where all that athleticism, all that explosivity reaches a point in which like your feet aren't developed enough to take on that sort of explosion. And I think it's partly due to the fact that we're underdeveloping the foot the foot, lower extremities, and those tendons by supporting it too much. So it's like I think rubber's meeting the road here with the tech, and I think that's why there is a surge outside of like the hippie, tree hugging people that wear the 5-toe shoes.
That's
like there is something real to actually having your feet grounded and training in that fashion.
In the words of Dwight Schrute, the worst thing you can do for your immune system is to coddle it. It's the same philosophy for your athleticism and your feet.
Yeah.
If you train in this overcushioned environment and then you go and compete, you're going to be at these lopsided, events.
I think that there's a lot of credibility to this. Let's call it a theory right now. It's kind of the same thing that you're hearing people talk about with AI. You're seeing people who now are essentially outsourcing their thinking to AI. So they're like heavily relying on AI instead of actually thinking.
Did you see that study?
Yeah, that's crazy. Like the brain scan, like your brain just doesn't light up like your brain on AI.
Yeah, really? You got to pull this up. MIT did a study, and all the text says it's scary.
Brain atrophy.
Is.
Yeah. It's like your brain's in a wheelchair, and your quads are getting really thin. But it's
I did not even know that.
Okay. Yeah, it just broke.
Oh wow, look at that. I mean, it's kind of the same type of thing. I'm going to try and pull it up right here, see if I can find it. But isn't that the same kind of thing? Like you're relying on the technology, whether it be for your brain or whether it be for your foot or your body. And you have, when you have it and everything's like kind of aligned perfectly, things are going totally fine. But then, any sort of misstep here, like with Haliburton or with some of these other guys, we're seeing that more and more. All right, I'm trying to find this right here. What?
Here's another, do you think Achilles tears are more common in the NBA, right? Than NFL?
Ooh, I don't know.
I feel like that's the case.
Ask ChatGPT. Let's rely on that.
Well, okay. My theory with Achilles is that obviously it's an overtrained calf, and people who don't do enough heel walk and training their tibialis because it's like the easiest thing to overlook. And it's like I had a coach that played the NFL for a long time who said like the best DBs that he played with the NFL, Elijah Molden, his dad. They would start every practice off with 200 yards of heel walk and just get their tibialis to burn because that's all your cut in and out. That's your balance with your calves and everything. And so it's so easy to overlook that, to get the balance between the pull of your calf and that tendon.
Yeah.
So that needs to be.
I mean, this is why you're always annoying me and be like, you do your heel walk, do your heel,
or toe raises.
I tell everybody this. Heel walk is so important, and it's like so much you change of direction because it's how you're absorbing. Like when you're getting out of cuts and breaks, that's how you're absorbing everything is tibialis.
Okay, here I found. All right, here's the thing. There's at least a tweet of the study that you guys were talking about right here. Hold on, let me pull it so I can actually read it. Okay, the MIT brain just completed the first brain scan study of ChatGPT users. And the results are terrifying. Turns out AI is not making us more productive. It's making us cognitively bankrupt. Wow. Okay. So, sort of the same type of thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to say, like, okay, so there are a couple same arena that we're having these discussions here, but it goes back to, are we smarter or stupider today with the internet than we were 30, 40 years ago? The argument I've always made is that we're stupider because we're relying and utilizing these things as a crutch. Yeah, we have more access to it, so we don't need to like register it and digest it, but that actually has an impact further down the line. And I think ChatGPT is just the next evolution of that. And going back to sports, I think the shoes, while it may not be like something that we consciously have been doing, it's become such a like underlying part of our training regimen. Like you have to have comfortable shoes. You have to have the best ones for change of direction, all that kind of stuff. I think that's just ingrained in our approach to training to where we don't even think about it as much anymore. And we aren't training the things, as Mikey's saying, like the tibs and doing toe raises and heel walks and doing all those things, strengthening the lower extremities to where it's like all of that underdevelopment is covered by the athleticism that has been gained in other respects. And that's where we're meeting that point of that breaking point, literally.
Yeah, actually. And then here's the other thing. I mean, we were kind of poking fun at some of the NBA players and it's kind of the culture in the NBA of guys not really playing hurt. Well, Tyrese Haliburton played hurt and he ended up getting much more. Now this tweet right here says, you will never see a player play with a calf strain ever again. Yeah. Because I mean, this is kind of the worst. This is the worst case scenario when you have a little tweaked injury like that, especially in the calf area. I mean, people like to joke about the calf, but it is a dangerous injury and can result in something like this. I also wonder, does some of this come about because of the length of the NBA postseason. Like it's very, very long. Like, and obviously all of the series are 7-game series now. And it did not used to be that way. I saw some post from some European Pacers fan who is like bitching in the video about how I am just so tired. I'm so exhausted. I am in Europe. I want to watch the Pacers. I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch them.
Mike.
I've been doing
early
this
here
since April or whenever the playoffs started. It's just like the playoffs are damn near 2 months. Do you guys think that also comes into play?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the playoffs more so than it is the regular season. Yeah, you get a little bit more time to rest and do all that kind of stuff. But we've talked about this before. I think it's the training and the amount of training that's starting at like a 3rd, 4th grade level, and kids are just going like 6 to 8 months of the year, just going hard and playing so many games, as opposed to just going out and improving your athleticism and doing just natural things like playing outside. You know, I think there's just an increase in specialization in the training that's actually having effects and ramifications at a much younger age in the athletic realm. So I know there are a bunch of different factors going on here. And yes, I think length of seasons is a problem. But you know, that's not going to keep the NBA from trying to churn out more money. And trying to do things like this.
What about what do we think about this though? I like the level of intensity is so drastically different from the regular season to the NBA to the playoffs in the NBA. I think it's almost like when I played for the Unicorns back in the day, our regular season was so easy. We would dominate every team, win by 50, and then all of a sudden it's the playoffs, and all of a sudden we're challenged, and all of a sudden it's this higher level, as opposed to like kind of building that up throughout the season and not kind of turning it on. I know they don't do that exactly. It's not like they're just flipping a switch. All right, it's the playoffs now. It's time to go. But there is an element of that within basketball culture. There is an element of that.
The intensity spikes up just at the point where your body's hitting the highest fatigue in the season. Yeah. So it's like the worst crossing of path. I think, Scott, the hyper specialization thing is such a overlooked factor, because like not getting the cross training in, not getting these other bodily movements in, is so that when you are playing a game and you are hitting a movement that you haven't hyper worked on, because everybody's, like you're saying, starting from such a young age and getting these movements so ingrained in them that when they make a slight error, a slight mistake, their body can't adjust the way, because they haven't cross-trained. They haven't been in awkward positions. That's why, like, like the animal movement trainings that like Conor McGregor would do and all that stuff, putting your body in awkward positions, like that kind of stuff needs to be filtered in to help.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing multiple sports, you kind of get a little bit of that naturally, but a lot of these guys aren't. And I'm sure not so many people are doing like those animal movements.
Yeah. And it's built in rest too. It's not necessarily rest where you go from 100 to 0, but it's like you go from doing 100% a specific type of motion in a specific sport, in a specific type of athleticism, to shifting gears and keeping your body guessing. So it has to relearn, retrain, and understand those at an innate level.
It's kind of like when in the weight room, it's like, you're not going to do chest every day. Like I'm still working out every day, but I'm doing different muscle groups and strengthening all sorts and giving rest to my chest or my other muscle groups. Yeah. It's sort of the same sort of a equation right there.
Yeah.
We've now got in the NBA, we're going to be without two of the biggest stars kind of next year with Jayson Tatum and Tyrese Haliburton now with Achilles, both like you're at the tail end of the NBA season. They're going to miss the entire NBA season next year.
Now everyone's going to be Aaron Rodgers' friend. Now everybody's giving him a call. Like,
hey, Aaron,
how'd you do it?
How'd you?
So was it the ayahuasca went to your Achilles, or
you rubbed the ayahuasca on your Achilles?
So I think I'm getting it. What's your shaman's name? Do you think that like players in the US should be allowed to get PRP treatment if they have these kind of like this, an ACL, like these kind of extreme injuries? I feel like they should be allowed to get these technically illegal treatments that work.
And why it's illegal?
Yeah,
is this solve this with our boat theory?
Yeah, maritime law. The one thing I was going to ask you guys is PRP. Is it in the same realm as what the states in USADA maybe determines or defines as blood doping? Like, is that a similar sort of process? Like, maybe that's why they view it as such, even though it's strictly for a recovery process.
Yeah, could be that. I mean, because you are taking your blood out, and
I mean, you're not adding anything to it that isn't naturally derived, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's highly oxygenating your blood cells,
You
right?
just spinning it around in some crazy machine and injecting it back into you. And
That's natural. If you just
Yeah.
spin around yourself really fast,
exactly. Yeah, you just should spin your calf around really difficult. The human body can't really do it without spinning the whole body. Yeah,
Well,
Scott?
staying on this topic in conversation and the PRP and everything like that, and like we were looking at during the football season, I mentioned Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers having popped Achilles, and I know there were a couple others. I want to say J.K. Dobbins, but it may have been a ACL tear for him.
Yeah.
Glad he found a home here this year. But anyway, like looking at it, and we were talking about Christian McCaffrey too, and having like Achilles tendonitis. Like, not to make this about me, but anecdotally, I've been battling with Achilles tendonitis since last May. And it's like I've been having serious bouts of problems. Like it's probably like 3-month stretches where when I get out of bed, I literally cannot walk. Like I can't get on my toes. I have to like shuffle. And
dang.
This is why I came up with this theory. This theory about shoe tech is because the reason I've been thinking about this so hard because it's debilitating. I've gone back when it first started. I have to say it's when I wore a new pair of shoes that happened to be basketball shoes, the Lukas. I mean, not to disparage him, but like or Nike, but for real, dude. I put those on and I started training and I started doing some calisthenics and plyos. And then the next day, dude, I could not move. There was so much cushion, like my feet couldn't function properly. And it lasted for 3 months. And then I finally got another pair of shoes that were more like stiff on the base.
Yeah.
And then it started paring away, but it's recently flared up again. So I completely understand why Christian McCaffrey like held off, because in a similar way, your calves are strained. If you put pressure on it, we just saw what happened with Haliburton when he pushed through a calf strain. Like that stuff can happen, especially in football at running back position. Like, dude, it's so crazy, man.
It's such a hard balance with an injury like that because people think you're just being so weak and such a baby. You like half strain, but like when you actually tear it, nobody's gonna say,
Yeah, look at Haliburton now.
Yeah.
Like he just pushed through. He just pushed through a calf strain. I'm like so terrified of that when I do any sort of fast movements now. Like if I'm going to run sprints in the front yard, which I did the other day, it's really, really scary for the neighbors when I'm just sprinting up the street. Like, okay. And I'm looking, and the neighbors are like, "What is he doing?"
Nick has the funniest sprinting noises there are.
It helps me go fast. Okay. Like,
no, I do believe it. When I sprint, I go like a little something. You need something when you're getting out of the gate, when you're building up, when you're in a dry phase, you have to make some sort of noise. You can't be quiet.
It's the equivalent of the tennis player grunting every time they hit the ball.
Yeah. It basically is. But you have to make that just high tone. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes you go fast. But I'm completely worried about that anytime I'm doing some sort of like explosive movement or a power clean or anything like that. I mean, I got to work on this, but somehow it just gets in the back of my mind all the time. Like, I mean, because that's just the most devastating injury. Like, imagine even that. Like, it sucks for an athlete, and it also just sucks in life to have an Achilles or a calf injury.
You think I'm going to go to work with a calf strain? You're out of your mind. I'm not sitting at that computer.
You know what? In Europe, they would write you sick for like 6 months, and you just stay at home, and you'd still get paid. Yeah. So if you're going to get a calf strain or an Achilles, do it in Europe. There's always actually, not to get too off topic here, but it's always like a crazy thing with like the football that we played in Europe, Mike, like kind of the semi-professional, where the Americans were professional, but the European guys were just playing on the weekends as a hobby. And when they would get hurt playing football and then they couldn't do their real job, and then they would be still written sick from work by the doctor and still get all that time off. So
it's
kind of a good hack. Okay, let's moving on to something a little bit more positive from Game 7. Here was this interview after the game with Jalen Williams, with Scott Van Pelt. I thought this was really, really cool, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it and kind of, well, I'll ask you the question after here. Okay, is that up there? Here it is. About kind of like what is memorable playing with the team and with these guys. Here it is.
What has been most satisfying that you gave this team along the way, that when you look back on it, when you're old and washed like me, you're like, I did that. Is there one thing that you'll take great satisfaction in from this run?
Nothing's more precious than time, I think. And I think when...
That's so true, man.
just giving the team my time and them giving me theirs. We've had team dinners after we've lost. We've had plane don't take off till 4 a.m. and we sit on the runway. Like all those like cool times where we were present with each other and like had fun, played Blu-ray on the plane, Uno, listen to music together, like all that stuff. I'm happy that I did that with this team. I think that's why we were so good. Like all the off the court stuff is stuff that I'll remember, and when it comes to like time, it's like, yeah, just spending extra hours with each other. Like me and Chet used to like go in the hotel and like watch film on like our pick and rolls when he was coming back. Like that's the stuff I remember from this run more than like, I can't even remember what happened in our last series. So it's like those are always moments that stick out to me.
Well, you shared your time with me throughout this, and for that, I'm grateful. I enjoyed.
So
Part of the contract.
what's that?
It was part of the contract, Scott.
You shared your time with me.
60-second interview. Thank you for that. But I actually really like this. I don't know. I just could really relate to this because, and all the off the field stuff, because if, for example, again, not to make this too much about me. I mean, I'm just talking about myself a lot today. You guys,
That's what we do on this show.
No,
I
you
just did
always
it. I
talk about
just did
yourself.
it. You can do it.
oh,
Back to your next.
But to bring it back to me, is like our football team in Germany. We were not the most talented, but we were always the best team, and I think a lot of that had to do with our off the field chemistry. And the fact was, like, part of our contracts was we had all of these free meals at restaurants. So our core group of guys would have free lunch and free dinner at restaurants throughout the week, and we'd all go together. And so we're eating meals 10 to 12 times a week together at the table and like building all of this chemistry. And it sounds kind of funny, but I always point back to that. One is kind of like my best memories of being a part of the team, and two, of why we had such good team chemistry is just all of this off the field stuff. Scott, I see you're kind of smirking at my heartfelt anecdote here. What do you have to say?
Well, the only reason I'm laughing is I completely agree with you, dude. The dining hall and the mess hall, like whenever you were done, like that, those are the memories you take away, not what was on the field or during practice or anything like that. But I'm laughing because that viral clip that went out of the basketball player a couple of years ago who was like, "What are you going to miss the most?" He goes,
Yeah.
The food.
I would
He's like, I don't know, probably just going out to eat.
Yeah, just burst into tears, and everyone's like, "Why is he making a joke of this deep question?" It's like, oh, that's the real answer.
Yeah.
It's for real.
Going out to eat one more. Next question.
But I think, I mean, also like when you look at this OKC team, you know, they have like really incredible kind of, especially defensive chemistry. Like they're incredible defense, and I think having good team defense, that comes back to chemistry. And so I really, really like this. Are you seeing this stuff of how, I mean, a lot of people are saying this OKC Thunder team is very unlikable and kind of very a forgettable champion, and they don't have just not so likable. Are you seeing this?
They don't have the panache.
The panache, sure.
Why do they say that? They don't like the guys? What?
Like the guy, there's not something, or I don't know. I'm asking you guys. What?
I think a part of this is just, it's probably older fans like us and older probably looking at them and being like, they're too Gen Z-y. Like they're like, there's something about it. They're on too many commercials. Those three, you know, you got Chet Holmgren, like we talked about with the crop tops, because he can't invest in tall sizing or anything like that.
No.
You know, it's just, there's probably something there that people are just rubbed the wrong way. But like all that said, it's pretty wild to say that when SGA just had one of the most historic years in a long time, winning the scoring title, MVP of the regular season, and the finals MVP. Like the dude just went on a tear and just played lights out. You know, that's the only thing I can imagine as being the problem, and it also being a product of them being an OKC. Like that's just not a place that anybody usually thinks of when they think of NBA or basketball in general. You know, there's so many good stories that came out of this. Like if you wanted to pull up that next one, Nick, with the coach and Caruso and how they came on together, like that. There's something special about this team that's. I would liken it to the flavor vanilla, like vanilla bean. Like never, vanilla bean always hits. It never misses. And if you don't have options and you have vanilla bean, it's the best flavor in the world. And like that's what I always say. It's like sometimes you just got to take the vanilla and enjoy it for what it is. And that's what I feel like OKC is.
Scott, you are really passionate about vanilla bean ice cream, I think.
Yeah, my favorite.
Do you put it in the microwave?
Oh,
You put chocolate sauce on it,
Turn
put
it
it in
into
the microwave,
milk.
take it out, and then mix it all up.
Yeah, you
That's what I
basically
do.
turn it into a milkshake. Mikey's
Yeah, that's
milkshake.
ice cream.
No, that
Yep.
is true of Mark Dagino. Is that how you say his last name, Dagino? And Alex Caruso, like grinding through the G League together and then coming up and then winning the NBA title. Also,
That is really cool.
Mark is like 40 years old. Like,
Yeah.
he's a young coach. I mean, Scott, we got a couple more years to win an NBA title as a head coach.
We got a chance. Yeah, we
All I
got a
think
chance.
about
Also,
when I-
why does he look so much like Gene Potter?
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
wow, he does.
That's crazy. For those who
It's
don't
the
know,
haircut. It's the
Yeah.
sideburns.
It's also something with the mouth. I don't know that the
Yeah.
facial structure. Gene Potter was the high school basketball coach at our high school that we went to, Jesuit High School. None of us were good enough to play on the basketball team. Well, Scott,
Oh.
did you make JV or JV2? What'd you do?
No, I played freshman A and then JV, and I quit like middle through JV because I wanted to focus on football. Which, talking about hyper specialization, probably should have played basketball to make sure that I could compete at the college level.
Well, Scott, that's why you have that Achilles tendonitis right now. It's
Yeah.
because you're hyper specialized. Okay, maybe you should have worked on your dribbling a little bit more. Bringing back to or sticking with the Thunder. Actually, though, I want to ask you guys this: do you think that a elite GM, not to say that the OKC's coach is not elite, but do you think an elite GM is more important than an elite coach? Because now we've seen, like, look at for those just listening, the Thunder won the title. They have 27 picks in the next 6 years. One player on the roster, only one, is over 30 years old. 56% of them are 25 or younger. They've drafted 6 of their top 10 players and all of these things. So, like, they're in a great position, and people talking about, oh, this could be the start of a dynasty. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but they do have kind of the positioning for that. And we saw also elite GMing lead to a Super Bowl champion with Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, people always, we on this show even are like, what does Nick Sirianni even do? I mean, he just got an insane roster. What do you guys think, GM or coach?
Well, okay. I think in today's day and age, I think an elite GM is the difference maker. That's not to say that an elite coach is not necessary, but the definition of elite for coaching this day and age is different than what it was when MJ was coming up, when we had like The Last Dance and Jerry Krause versus Phil Jackson and all of that kind of stuff. I think today's day and age, the elite coaches are the best people managers, and they can handle a bunch of different egos within a locker room and be able to create a good culture environment to help those guys thrive. And yeah, obviously there are X's and O's in basketball, but like I would say that they're more of the people manager side of things than the X's and O's these days, because the players are so much more ingrained in the game and they have knowledge and so on and so forth. So it's easier to kind of go that way. So the GM, I would say today, is probably a little more important because they're the ones who get those guys into the locker room, and then you got the coach who can manage them. Back in Michael's day, I think there was a huge thing because Jerry Krause, everybody's always saying, even in The Last Dance, that he was kind of butthurt for not getting more shine for having put together such an amazing roster and so on and so forth. But back then, I feel like the coach actually coached and like put guys through the rigors of sport and everything. And it's just a different era to where I think back then the coach mattered far more.
That's funny that you bring that up because we just were watching the Last Dance. Like we thought Laura
so good
needed to get to a little bit of exposure to like some a strong pillar of American culture, which is Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls of the 90s. So we started watching. We watched the first 3 episodes over the weekend, and it's just Jerry Krause, man. He was in the wrong era. He would like GM nowadays when we like to shine the spotlight on them. He was just a little too early.
A little too short.
Short and pudgy. It's so funny in the documentary, people like who are getting interviewed go, yeah, Jerry, he was really good at his job, but he suffered from little man syndrome.
Yeah. It's so funny, like it's an actual medical diagnosis. Well, the test results came back, and do you have LMS?
It's just as bad as ILS.
The importance of the GM, I think, is so much more important in NBA than it is. Like, I think having a good coach is so much more important in NFL football than it is. Like you're saying, like you could just throw a group of 5 really good basketball players together and they'll figure it out. I think it's because there's so much pickup basketball going on. There's so much rec basketball. Like, you can figure out how to play with anybody. But like in football, you have to really work as a unit to and you need a coach to grind that out with you.
Yeah. Like in basketball, individual players can kind of make their own plays, whereas a wide receiver has to wait for the call. You know, you have to wait for your call, offensively at least, in football. And the coach has so much more power and influence, at least a play caller, especially on game day. I want to go back to what Sam Presti, the GM of OKC, said here in 2021. This is when they didn't make the playoffs. And this is how what he said about it. I think it's good advice for anybody trying to achieve anything. Let's check it out.
As I said earlier, we can't be reactionary or emotional about it. We just have to keep chipping away every single day, knowing that over time we'll achieve our goals if we have the poise, the patience, and the willingness to adjust to the setbacks that we, will inevitably encounter. As they say, shortcuts cut long runs short, and we're going to do everything in our power not to allow that to happen. And when we do get back to the postseason, we want it to be an arrival and not an appearance. And arrival meaning that we can return, we can be there, we can take some chance or bad fortune and not have it sink us completely. We've seen the benefit of that, and during our earlier years, we don't want a position where we get there, but we have no way to get back. And that's the focus and the precision with which we're working. We understand the ecosystem of the NBA, I think, very, very well. We understand how that works. We understand what we have to work with. And I feel extremely confident and optimistic about the future that we have here. We just have to continue to stick with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, what this tweet says right here also, he's the best GM in the league by a wide margin. He runs an organization with clarity and intent, building a culture people want to belong to, doing this in Oklahoma City, a market that no stars choose willingly, is remarkable. Thoughts on this?
The funniest part about this is just like an anti-burn the boats approach. Like,
yeah. That's true. It's kind of, okay.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Yeah, I do like the idea of, like, you have to build a culture like this, and you have to build this way in a market that you were just talking to right there in OKC, because there is no pull otherwise to get certain people there. You have to do it differently than everywhere else. And I think this is the right approach. And it's kind of, you always talk about the division up there in the AFC and everything, AFC North, and how those teams and organizations really embody the culture that is around in those cities and in that region. And I get the sense that this is a very similar approach, just in the basketball sense of with OKC and how they build and the culture that they're trying to foster there. So this totally makes sense. I don't know if that, while I think the Lakers should probably adopt something like this, I don't know if it would actually work and jive there.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say it's kind of the opposite of the burn the boat situation. I mean, because you also, like, if you take it to the Rams a few years ago, when they kind of burned the boats and went all in and gave up all their draft capital, and it paid off. They burned the boats. They had no chance no option but to win a Super Bowl now, because you're going to suck for the next couple of years. They burned the boats. OKC didn't. So what do we learn from this? That you can kind of do both? Okay. Who was it that said burn the ships? Cortez? Who was that?
It was Cortez. Oh. And I guess it's funny to think about. This is kind of a bit. When he gets on the coast, okay, and he's giving the speech, and he goes, burn the boats. And all the guys are like, yeah, burn the boats. And he goes, no, I'm serious. Burn the boats. And it's like, he probably just did something really horrible back at the mainland that he didn't want to go back to. And he's like, we just burn them, I think. And let's just keep going. And that's what I think what really went down.
Yeah, we can't go back.
No. What happened back there? Why are you burning the boats? We just can't go back there, I think. Let's just burn them. Let's keep going.
Cortez's ex-wife was back there. He didn't want to go back. Okay.
That's my sports take on burn the boats.
I think that's a great sports take. So you got kind of two options right here. Okay, last thing on the NBA, just because I think this is really cool. It's also a very cool graphic just for us to visually see kind of the parity right now. So these are the champions in the NBA by decade. You see some of these other decades be absolutely dominated by one or two teams. The 60s, obviously the Celtics, the Bulls in the 90s, the Lakers in the 80s. But and in the 2000s, 2010s with the Heat and the Warriors. But in the 2020s, we've had a new champion every single year. So one could argue that right now is the greatest time for parity in the NBA. Is parity then, however, good for the league? Because we are seeing declining ratings and interest in the NBA, even though the success is being distributed throughout more teams.
I think it's so fun to watch a dynasty because then you have all the bandwagon people loving the dynasty and loving seeing the excellence. Then you have all the people that love to hate them and watch them and to want to watch them fail.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the 90s is the best era. The 60s seems like a great era of basketball, even though it was all lopsided.
I think you're right there. I think actually also the ratings coincide with this. When there's dynasties, people are more interested. It kind of feels counterintuitive though, doesn't it? Because you think like, oh, same team again, boring.
Yeah, but I think there's an element, there's a human element here where it's like people love to hate watch, right? And creating a villain and having a villain that you're trying to overcome. And I feel like in today's day and age, it's become individual villains as opposed to team villains. So ever since LeBron left for the super team down in Miami, it's become LeBron, not necessarily the Heat or the Lakers or Cleveland again. It's boiled down to a singular player, which like I don't know is the best thing for ratings. In terms of the parity, I would agree there's more parity today, but I would also say even during the 90s when the Bulls were dominant there, dude, the competition, I get the sense across all teams was at an insanely high level. And it just so happened that you had the greatest player of all time playing in that era that happened to put them over the edge. But there were multiple times where they were pushed to 6-game series, 7-game series that Michael had to come out swinging in order for them to get over the hump. So they were going up against some seriously good teams. So there was definitely parity still there.
Yeah.
They always ended up on top. But that like, I don't know if that parity necessarily, that level of parity still exists, because it seems like each year there's such a change of competition and intensity between teams that I don't even know anymore. I'm getting a weird read.
Yeah.
It's like the teams can go into the season having a vision of what the standard is and who they want to beat. So like when they're like in training camp or like preparing for the season, they're like, okay, the standard is the Bulls or something. And like, it's like now since it's such a rotating door, it's hard to like, who are we comparing ourselves to? It's a free for all. So
once again, to bring this back to me in my welcome to the podcast about me. But this is actually, Mike, that's a great point, because with the Unicorns team that I played for so long, they were trying to build something. I think I mentioned on the show that they had gone to the championship like 3 years in a row and lost against the same team. And when I got into that Unicorns organization, every conversation was, okay, this is the standard, the team that keeps beating us. How do we do what they do, but a little bit better? And we kind of try to match that in all sorts of different ways, in the ways that we could, and then try to creatively get around that in ways that we couldn't and had, constraints, whether it be financial or city population or something like that. So I do think that having that, there is something there when you have kind of like, okay, here's kind of a dynasty team that we can all look towards. It does make things a little bit.
There's a clearer standard of greatness that you're chasing when it's popping up and down. Like there's no like,
who would you say
of sustenance?
Who's the ideal standard or culture in the NBA right now?
I would say even though they had a tumultuous season this year, I get the sense that the Nuggets are somebody that's stayed even keel in terms of movement of players. They've kept a similar roster probably since like 2021, 2022. Like it's stayed consistent there. But you look at all these other teams, it seems like there's been such movement that's so jarring. Like even with like the Bucks, who won it a few years ago, like they've shipped off a lot of people. They got Dame, they got all these different things. So even those who win, they decide to switch it up so quickly and so frequently that it's just like, dude, I don't even know. Like I'm just rooting for a logo at this point. I'm not even rooting for a team specifically, or maybe it's just a single player that ends up being like a steady person throughout the season. But everybody else is just so toss here, toss there, and it's so transient.
Yeah, transient is a great word. I mean, what do you think about the Thunder? Kind of. I mean, we just listened to their GM. I mean, are they maybe one to like look to nowadays for trying to build that culture?
I have a feeling like this is the beginning of something along those lines. Like just based off of what he was saying right there, Presti was saying right there, it seems like that's their mode of operation, and it's going to pay off. if they've had this success so early. You saw how scrappy they were even last year, and that's why they were preseason like top 2, top 3, teams, and then they ended up winning it. So I think they're gonna don't fix what ain't broke is essentially their approach here. I think.
I say don't fix what ain't broke. All right, so there we have it, guys. Basketball season is over. The NBA is over. Mike, I know you're sad about that.
I'm really sad.
We're getting into now.
What am I gonna watch? I don't know. Bowling? What season? What season's next?
Dude, we are in a long stretch, guys, of
all right, we gotta find some obscure sports.
No sports.
What's spike ball season? Is that summer?
Spike ball's year round. You should have respect for it. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Pickleball.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
we are in now no man's land of the sports world.
We got the golf, the British Open here mid-July. We got the U.S. Open tennis, but that's later in the summer. I mean, the MLB fans right now are just seething if they're watching this at all.
I know. But hey, even MLB fans will say, all right, sometimes there's a little bit of a midsummer lull here. Let's pick it back up again in August. Okay. So we will see how the middle of the summer goes. A lot of great sports out there. They also need to take some time off, just like you have to for more break. So there we have it. Oklahoma City Thunder, NBA champions, Tyrese Haliburton. We wish him the best in his recovery with the Achilles. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
Train your Tibbs.
Yeah.
Heel walk. Don't walk.
I think such a good trainer. Any athlete I train will never have any sort of injury like that. All single leg stuff, all heel walk. They'll be so well balanced. You'll see. You'll all see.
I think we look on that.
I'll sell an online course.